Food and nutrition. So this was the subject of today's tip, and I think those are two very different things, because nutrition is actually something that is very difficult to deal with in our culture of, being slim and eating right, and it's very daunting for a lot of people. So another aspect of nutrition as opposed to food, I think, is that there is pretty much one or two truths as to how to feed ourselves. There are quite widely accepted ways to eat. So you have to eat a lot of vegetables, you have to eat lean meats and things like that. Whereas food is really a subject of passion around the world, and I think that is it's a universe that is unique to each individual. So I think that food, as opposed to nutrition, is really something that sparks passion and is really viewed differently by each individual. And for me, food has always been a huge part of my life. I started cooking at 4 because my mom would always burn her kasha, so I had to start cooking myself at a pretty young age. And when we came to Canada, I started to see how other people ate, and it was different foods. So I became curious about the meals that I saw kids eat at the cafeteria and started to want to reproduce them. So this is how I really started to experiment with cooking and learn about it. But the most transformative experience of my life with respect to food was on my 30th birthday, when my family and my boyfriend at the time took me to the Fat Duck in the UK, which is a 3-star Michelin restaurant that is specialized in molecular or modernist cuisine, and is an absolute experience. The head chef there is Heston Blumenthal. You maybe know him. He's a celebrity chef and one of the founders of Modernist Cuisine. It was a meal of 14 courses, and you had to be there for 4 hours. It was an absolute blast for me. It was the best birthday present I could possibly have. I was so fascinated by that experience of new textures and new flavors that I really started to get into the science of cooking and the techniques of cooking and what food really means beyond just nutrition. So I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about modernist cuisine specifically, because it's quite interesting. It started in the 60s, after the modernist movement started in all the other spheres of creation. And it was really in the 60s that cooks started to question the traditional techniques of cooking that were well established and codified, and were mostly based on French cuisine. So there were very rigid ways of doing things, and cooks started to, try to break free of that mold. So one of the first chefs who did that was a Spanish man called Ferran Adria in the 80s, and he was considered, and still is by many people, as the best chef in the world. So he was the first one to really publicly experiment with cuisine. He is the one who did deconstructed dishes. He is the one who started looking at scientific ways to process food, and to try to kind of break with the traditional French understanding of how a meal should be composed. After that, in 1984, a scientist from Harvard called Harold McGee took to explaining some scientific principles behind the preparation of food. So the Maillard reaction that you probably all heard about, which is what happens when you brown your piece of meat, the brining, the emulsions, all of this was codified in his book, which became almost the Bible for most chefs in the world. And the thing is that science was not a new concept in food at that time. It's just that it was usually linked with industrial processes for creating food. The big companies, McDonald's, as well as like frozen food companies, started to use science for food conservation and other aspects of food production that really made the food available to the masses in new forms, so frozen or dehydrated or pre-prepared. However, individual chefs didn't really have the resources to look into that science, and Harold McGee is really the one who explained all of those principles who were discovered by, for example, NASA for feeding the astronauts in space, or the big food industry who wanted to make their food available in new forms to the chefs, who then took those principles and made their own creations with that. I would like to just do a little parenthesis about molecular cuisine as opposed to modernist cuisine. It is a word. Molecular cuisine is an expression that was coined by the Hungarian physicist Nicholas Kurti and a French chemist, Herve This, who also worked with Harold McGee and Heston Blumenthal in developing this current of molecular cuisine. However, it is really the media who popularized that molecular cuisine expression. Contrary to belief, it is not necessarily based on science, and Heston Blumenthal and other chefs that were then considered masters of molecular cuisine actually rejected that label because they claimed that they started experimenting with that type of cuisine long before Nicholas Kurti and Herve This coined the term. So they prefer calling their cuisine modernist. So the big principles of molecular or modernist cuisine are not just scientific. It is a way of thinking of food as a social, artistic, and technological achievement. And the goal, as opposed to the traditional French cuisine, was not just to feed someone, but rather to play with their minds, to have a different perception of food through the taste, the flavor of it, and the aromas. Of course, it was also encompassing the experimentation with the cooking methods to really influence the texture and the flavor of food in completely new ways. And it was also a way to stimulate all of the senses, not just the taste, but also the hearing or the smelling of food, to provide enjoyment of food in a new way. It also exploited other influences from art and literature to influence the experience of the diner. I think that the most important thought in modernist cuisine was the attention to detail, to innovate, to really break all boundaries and to impress the diner, to surprise him. And in this, the science provided very interesting tools. So the first way that science influenced that kind of innovative cuisine was the experimentation method. Often the chefs of modernist cuisine would iterate on recipes by varying only one aspect, for example, one ingredient, one quantity, one temperature, and things like that, to be able to achieve the exact result that they wanted. Science also contributed with new techniques, for example, the sous vide technique, where you cook a meat immersed in a water at a very precise temperature. To achieve a very different result from traditional cooking methods. Then there was dehydration, or CO2, or liquid nitrogen, that would allow the foods to be instantly frozen. And finally, there were new ingredients that were added to the food. For example, some ways to gel food, or to transform fats into powders, or to make foams out of food. And in addition to science and the methods that I just told you about, there was also this research of flavor combinations. So maybe referencing something that you know, but then surprising the diner with an unusual combination, and really play also with the senses and the setting that the food was presented in, to surprise and really make the diners think about the food. So as a result of all of these techniques, the chefs sought to create the unexpected, maybe create illusions for the diner, to have the diner experience a discovery or to find something out. And it was also a way to put up a show. So basically, food became a performance and a way of storytelling. For example, one of the chefs, Grant Achatz, who has a restaurant in New York, tried to enhance the diner experience by presenting the plate of food on a pillow of air that was flavored with nutmeg. So every time a person would cut their piece of food, a cloud of nutmeg air would be released, and the diner would be kind of submerged in this new atmosphere that was surprising. Another thing that this chef did was to present the diners with an apple balloon. So this was a balloon, a helium balloon, that was made out of apple jelly, and the diners would have to basically inhale the helium through the apple gel of the balloon. And this creates experiences around the table that are completely novel, where diners interact with their group, that they laugh, they cry, they have entirely new experiences of going to a restaurant. I remember at the Fat Duck that I had such strong feelings related to the dishes I was tasting and experiencing that I had to write a diary while I was eating, because I was completely overwhelmed with the sensation and the sense of discovery. One dish I remember is called the oak moss dish, where a bed of moss was presented to me at the table. It was smoking with dry ice, and it smelled of mushrooms. Then I had to put a little sheet of mushroom jelly on my tongue, which just kind of melted in my mouth. And then I could eat a little ball of quail jelly, which was just so many plays on the forest aspects of the dish. So I was completely engulfed in this feeling of being in the moist forest, where I had this moss, these birds, and the mushrooms. And that was absolutely spectacular. So I think that this all of this, these experimentations are extremely inspiring. And if you are a foodie, I really suggest that you try to veer a little bit away from traditional cooking, French cooking or ethnic cooking, and really try to dine at one of those expensive but extremely exciting restaurants who prepare dishes of modernist cuisine. And I, as an interpreter, an aspiring interpreter, hope to be able to make a living so that I could go to these places again. In the meantime, I have a little kit of molecular cuisine that I can't wait to start experimenting with. And I bought some books that I will be able to work from. And I hope that you became a little bit interested in it, and that you will do some more research on it and go dine at a modernist cuisine restaurant. Thank you.